Hi, I'd like to thank Phil, the last speaker, for his action at Fosse Fran.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I was also there. I took part in the action as a legal observer, and it was fantastic, and it was really empowering to see people directly challenging the fossil fuel industry and taking matters into their own hands and shutting down the station, the coal mine for the day. It's really critical that we both keep the pressure on politicians because, as Molly said, there have been agreements, but the government has backtracked. I work in policy analysis for a renewable energy company, and we've seen in the past year multiple backtracking from the government. We've seen firstly cuts to onshore wind. That's still being debated to some extent, but it's pretty much going ahead. We've seen cuts for solar, which wasn't even in the manifesto. Amber Rudd, the Secretary of State for Energy and Climate Change, said when she started her job, "I want to see a solar revolution." One of the first things she did in office was to announce massive cuts to feed-in tariffs and the end to the renewables obligation, which supported larger scale. We've also simultaneously seen an increase in subsidies for fossil fuels, and this is in multiple forms. Some of it's in direct subsidies through something called the capacity market, which is essentially propping up coal power stations to keep them online when they otherwise wouldn't, because the government isn't convinced that it can keep the lights on otherwise, despite research to the contrary. They're also doing subsidies through the form of tax breaks in the North Sea for fracking. At the same time, they are making planning easier for fracking whilst they make it more difficult for onshore wind. So things are justified either in terms of communities or in terms of saving money. However, when it comes to communities for fracking, the government is not listening. When it comes to money for the fossil fuel industry, no one's listening. But when it comes to money for renewables, we can't afford it. So we've got to keep the pressure on, we've got to keep protesting, and I'd just like to highlight that this week, what started at Fosse Fran, for the next couple of weeks all over the world, people will be taking direct actions from the Philippines, Bangladesh, the United States, across the world, so keep an eye on. It's part of Breakthrough 2016.
Fantastic contribution. Thanks everyone who spoke. Yeah, I think that's a really strong message there that left to their own devices, our government is never going to respond to this crisis quick enough, and the planet will be completely trashed unless we come together and force them to. So it's really good to see everyone here. Thanks everyone for coming and for speaking. And now we're going to do a walk backwards through the park just to sort of really hammer home the message that the government's taking us backwards on climate change. And then we're going to go enjoy the sun or something, I suppose. So.
There's a party on Stoke Scroff to say goodbye to George Ferguson if anyone's interested. Right, no joke, big street party, Stoke Scroff, head up to it in a minute.
Yes, right.